Welcome to the place where the conversations are tough and the guests are tougher. My name is Jackson Stepanian. Welcome to the Difficult Conversation podcast. Today, I am pleasure to be with a great family friend of mine, Tameeka Smith. Tameeka, say what's up.
Hi.
How are you? How's Colorado?
Colorado is awesome. I'm more interested in Jamaica. I just got back from Jamaica in the era of COVID. And COVID is much better prepared for this pandemic than we are. So you got off the airplane and depending upon what state you come from, you get tested at the airport or they check you for symptoms. They sanitize you and your bags. And they may even require you to download an app that tracks your every move the entire time that you're in Jamaica.
So they got contact tracing down.
Oh yeah. Even when you get on the internet, right? You go on the internet to get the Wi-Fi, right? Mm-hmm. They'll ask you questions about kind of where you are, where you're staying, the whole nine. So they've got their system down, but there's also too an Asian influence in Jamaica. So it kind of makes sense that they're following the Chinese and what they're doing, which makes it easier for them to get a handle on the virus, which I have a lot of respect for.
That's crazy. You're a lot different guest than who I usually have on. I usually have on kids around my age, teenagers, high school students. You're a corporate executive. Tell me more. I want the people that are listening to know more about you and what you do, and then we'll dive right into some topics.
Yeah, so right now I am the COO. So at this very, very moment, I am the COO, the CTO, and the CFO for a charter school network in Denver. And we're the highest performing charter school network in the state of Colorado. And while I'm biased, I'd venture to say I think we are one of the highest performing charter school networks in the country. We have a number of blue ribbon schools. And our mission really is to kind of lessen the educational and equity gap, right? So if we can eradicate educational inequity, we believe that we can help change the country because a lot of it starts with education. The more you know, the more you grow. It really changes the world, right? The more information we have about what's right, what's wrong, and what's possible, we can change the world.
So since you're the CFO, COO of a charter school, what are your thoughts on Joe Biden saying he wants to I think he said something along the lines of completely eradicate charter schools and put that funding towards public schooling?
I think it's insane. So I believe, obviously, right. So we are a public charter school network. Mm-hmm. So I believe in a public school education. In fact, I am a product of a public school education. And I believe that charter schools give families that don't otherwise have another option, the option to give their children a different type of education. And so charter schools have really served the space of a private school, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So you can get a different education or different type of quality of education with a charter school, because charter schools they're autonomous, right? So they can pretty much have their own programming and do what they need to do in order to educate. And we're not as boggled down with the bureaucracy of public school and district public schools that other schools are faced with.
So with Joe Biden's point, is that enough to make you not vote for Joe Biden this upcoming fall?
No, very good question. So I find myself in a situation that most people found themselves in when they had to vote for Hillary or Trump. Mm-hmm. I'll die first before I vote for Trump. In fact, I won't vote. If he's my option, I'd rather not vote. And so while I don't necessarily care for Joe Biden, and I'll give you another reason why, not just the whole charter school issue. He's the lesser of two evils. So I trust him more than I trust him more than I trust Trump. Yeah. And that's what I have to go with. But Biden is partly responsible for the 3 strikes you're out legislation, which incarcerated a ton of Black and brown men. right? And our country has the most amount of incarcerated men in the history of the world, of the modern world. And it's sad because it's a different way. It's modern day slavery. It's a different form of it. And so Joe Biden was a proponent and supported that. And so I have a bone to pick with him as a result of that.
I get that. I know he's not very highly. I know a lot more Democrats would rather vote for Bernie Sanders than, let's say, Joe Biden. But
Yes.
I want to get into. So I asked every single guest the exact same question at the beginning of every single episode. Where do you stand? What are your political beliefs? What do you represent a certain party? If so, why?
I am I'm independent, I will say,
Mm-hmm.
because I vote for the individual at the time in history that makes sense for what's happening in history at the moment. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't subscribe to a particular political party. I did I did grow up in Denver, so I'm more liberal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if I had to choose, I would have voted for Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
But I don't have that option. So I then would have to vote for a Democrat, is what it
Well,
is.
I mean, technically, I don't think he's suspended his campaign. It's more like he put it on pause. I'm pretty sure his name is still on the ballot. I don't think Joe Biden's received enough delegates to become the prominent nominee. So you can still vote for Bernie. It just won't be going towards anything.
Yeah. So people need to understand that, right? Your vote counts. And
Mm-hmm.
if you waste your vote where it doesn't count, you might help someone else win. And
Yeah.
so we need to make sure that our votes count. And I'll say this is going to be unpopular and unpopular to your listeners for sure. Um, I'm not I'm not embarrassed to admit, but I've always kind of had the mindset that the world will be what it is, right? Until the era of Trump. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've only voted one time in my life, and that was for Obama. And that's
Really?
insane. And I voted for Obama not because he was black. That was a real important part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that he was going to be a president that would walk the walk, talk the talk, and do all of the right things and have an unblemished record in terms of scandal. And he did all of that.
He
He
did.
wasn't perfect, right? And no president is perfect.
Not at
But
all.
I think he has modeled what presidential should look like and feel like. And so I think that the one time I cast my vote, I cast it in the right place. And this time I'm going to vote again
There you
because
go.
I want to vote evil out. And I believe that Trump is evil to his core.
It's I know I'm prominently young. I'm very young. I'm only 16. But I lived during the Obama era, and I'm living through the Trump era. And every single day on the news, if I go downstairs in the morning, I look at the news. It's just it's a new thing every single day. Like
Every day.
today, I don't think it was today. I think it was a few days ago. He posted a picture of Goya beans,
Yeah.
just to play to his agenda of a quote or like his role as like the troll or like the liberal destroyer, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I have so many feelings about
I
him.
love Goya, but I stopped buying Goya as a result of what their CEO, what he stands for.
It's
And I have,
crazy. No, it's
it's crazy.
nuts. But
It's insane. But I do firmly believe that you vote with your dollar, right? And so
Mhm.
I have stopped going to certain fast food places. Not that I can eat fast food anyways. I am no longer on Facebook. I'm done with Mark Zuckerberg, but I am done with Facebook because I found myself becoming a person that I wasn't.
Mhm.
I've lost a lot of friends in the era of Trump around race and you know what's interesting. I'll share this with you. I have a ton of friends that are not black, right?
Mhm.
And I have a ton of friends that have said, "How do I support you in the Black Lives Matter movement?"
Mhm.
Um, and then I have some friends that have said all the right things, but their actions don't say the right things, right?
Mhm.
What comes out of their mouth and what they put on social media says the right things, but then when you see what they actually do, it doesn't add up. And so I've lost friends as a result of that. And so I've tried to put myself in the space to say, if I were white,
Mhm.
how would I can I really understand racism, right? And then one of my friends said, well, I don't see color and I don't really understand. Like, I see how you have grown and you've kind of modeled the way of what it's like to be a Black woman in America, and you've worked hard and you've done all the work. And I said, yeah, but I'm an anomaly. It doesn't right. It doesn't that doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah.
But Jackson, one of the things I wanted to do, and I always try to like gain perspective. And so I said, how can I understand where my white allies are coming from?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'm gonna put myself in a space of something that I don't understand. And so when we talk about the LGBTQ community,
Mm-hmm.
I say all the right things about the transgender community, right? I
Mm-hmm.
post all the right things. I say all the right things, but I really, truly don't understand it.
I 100%
I
agree
don't,
with you.
right? I don't want to see a transgender person die ever,
Yeah.
right? Never. I don't want to see people treat them unfairly. But have I gone out of my way to understand what they value and what their struggle is?
I haven't.
No, I
Exactly.
haven't. Right. And then I said, well, and if I don't understand them and I haven't gone out of my way, have I ever contributed to a cause? Have I ever marched with them? Have I ever done anything for them? No. When I hear people say things that are racist or what have you, or against the transgender
Mm-hmm.
community, do I stop them from saying it? No, I gotta be honest. I just haven't. And so I'm like, who am I to try to hold my white allies accountable when I'm not doing it for the transgender community? And so now I find myself, I'm watching a ton of shows about the transgender community. I'm reading books about it, and I want to understand what their struggle is, because I believe our struggle is one and the same. In fact, I actually think they have it harder than Black people.
You mean
Because
today? Like today in America?
today, oh yeah, I think they have it
Yeah.
harder than Black people, and especially uh, if you are like, let's say, Black or brown or Asian, right, yellow, and you're transgender, you have it worse. I mean, like, you have, like, it's just mounting. And
Stacked up
so
on you.
yeah, so I'm trying to understand that community such that I can understand how my allies and the folks that want to do something, I'm where they are. I'm standing in their shoes, and so I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I'm smoking my own brochures, and so
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, listen, I'm going to start standing up for what I believe is right, no matter what the cause, because silence is compliance, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if I am silent, I am compliant with what's going on, and I'm just not doing that anymore.
I can 100% respect the maturity. Well, of course you're mature. You're quite.
I'm old.
But I don't know a lot of people that can say out loud that I do this, but I also fail to see that. I know that's like a big thing that people are trying to end. People are trying. You got to walk the walk and talk the talk.
Yeah, we all have to grow up.
We all have to grow up. So I want to get in. So I sent you an email a few days ago talking about the things that you would like to talk about, and then I summed up everything we're going to talk about. And one thing that really grabbed me was let me find it. Being a parent of an African American child. I don't know why, but that like grasped my attention. I want to hear that. When you turn on the news, let's say like a month ago, with the Black Lives Matter protest, what happened with George Floyd, as an African American in America, how does that make you feel? So I feel like as a white person, it doesn't affect me emotionally, or I would think. I don't want to assume, or it doesn't affect me as much as it would affect, let's say, my best friend Evan, who is Black.
Yeah. Well, I've seen so much police brutality and so many things that are unjust that have happened to the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what it was about the George Floyd incident that was the straw that broke the camel's back for
That
me.
I was gonna ask you that later. What was so different about this instant?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I don't, I cried more over what I saw happen with George Floyd, and in that moment, than I cried at my own father's funeral. And
Really?
that was deep for me, because I still have tried to wrap my head around like what that was about, and why I felt that.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it was witnessing a public lynching on
Yeah.
national television, and to have someone do it, that police officer was so casual about what he did and how he did it, and what happened. It broke my heart. It really did, and it's still hard. Sometimes I'm driving in my car and I'll just break out in tears. But as a mother of Black sons in particular,
Mm-hmm.
um, It's terrible. My sons will tell you, oh, they crack up. I mean, it's funny, but it's not. If they leave my house to go home at night,
Mm-hmm.
I say, text me and let me know that you got home. Well, most mothers might do that.
Yeah.
Well, one of our sons is 27. I mean, the other one is 24,
Yeah.
right?
No.
But I'll say, text me when you get home. If they don't, I will keep calling them
Yeah.
until they answer. Not because, right, and not because I'm this overbearing mother,
No, I
but
get
because
it.
I'm like, did you make it home? Did you get pulled over? And we've had to have conversations with our sons that go just like this. If you get pulled over, keep your hands on the steering wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Say yes, sir. Say no, sir. Be as polite as you can possibly be. Don't make any sudden moves, right? And so, and we're terrified that they're going to get pulled over and then not come back home to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I shouldn't have to feel that way. I shouldn't have to have that type of stress, but that's real stress. I think about my sons dying, and I'm not making this up, every day. Like I call them, I want them to just touch me, send me a text, let me know that you're alive. I want to touch them because I just don't know. You know, they could have a flat tire and end up dead. Who knows?
Yeah.
And it's sad that that's where we are in America. You know, we talk about police brutality. Chris Rock said it best, right? You hear people say, oh, well, not all police officers are bad. And I agree with that because I have some friends and family members that are police
Yeah.
officers.
I think it's hypocritical to say all cops are bad, or let's say ACAB. Then
Right.
if all cops are bad, I say this all the time in every single episode. If all cops are bad, then all white people are racist.
Right.
All black people are thugs.
Right. All black people eat chicken. We don't. You know,
Yeah.
we don't all eat watermelon. We don't all eat chicken. In fact, my son is allergic to watermelon. Like does not. He doesn't like it. Makes him sick. But it's a stereotype. But here's the deal. Chris Rock said it best. He said, we can't have bad apples in some professions. And the police are one of those, right? I'll give you another example. He says you can't have a bad apple in the airline industry, right? You
Yeah.
can't have, like, American Airlines can't say, hey, we do our best to fly planes, but we have some bad apples, and those bad apples like to crash into mountains.
Yeah.
Bear with us. You can't have that.
Very
And
true.
then with police brutality, you can't have bad apples for people that are supposed to protect and serve, because those bad apples are, they can't kill people, they can't harm people. Because if it was in the airline industry, I wouldn't fly if I knew that there are
Yeah.
bad apples. I'd be like, no, all pilots need to be able to fly
Yeah.
planes. All police officers should be fair and just.
So I want to kind of roll into the next topic because this is a perfect segue. You wanted to talk about defunding the police, and I have mixed opinions on it. So
Okay.
I'm going to give you my thoughts on it, and then I'm going to give you a counter argument to my thoughts on it, and then I want to hear your argument. So defunding the police, the standard definition, and I'm paraphrasing, is taking a portion of the funding from let's say a police department and giving it to public schools, public housing, etc. So a counter argument to my argument would be, well, shouldn't we apply more funding to these police departments to make sure, like, mental health coaches, make sure we're bringing the right people to patrol these counties, cities, states, etc. Give them more money, more funding, so they can be the best that they can be. Now, I want to hear your thoughts on defunding the police, so on and so forth.
Yeah, so there's this misconception that defunding the police will make us less safe.
Yeah, no,
right? Huge misconception. And police budgets have increased year over year, and they're at an historic all-time high.
Mm-hmm.
We've gone for, and there were billions of dollars that were placed into funding the police, like putting more police officers on the street, putting police officers or ununiformed officers in school, officers that don't have uniforms in schools, security resource officers, what have you, having tougher sentences, right, when people commit crimes, cash bail, all these things. And so when we say defund the police, it really means a number of things. It means like ending cash bail. Do you know how many people are in jail right now because they couldn't afford bail? That's insane. Like, because you couldn't get out it, because you couldn't put up $200-300 or $1,000. You're sitting in jail awaiting trial, losing your job. Your family can't eat. I mean, there's so many impacts to some of the things that have gone into funding police departments. And so, you know, if you look at, also too, if you look at police brutality, Black people are 2.5 times more likely to be killed by a police officer.
I did see that.
Right?
And then earlier, I think it was a few days ago, let's say like 3 days ago, Donald Trump was asked, what do you think about like something along the lines of police brutality against black people? And then
Yep.
he made the response. I don't know if you saw it. Well, white people it happens to white people too. But first off, I think the number is like it's like 3 times more white people than black people in America, and the number is so disparate. I don't know. I'm really bad at pronouncing words. Disproportionate from white people to black people. So even though the black police brutality number is lower than the white number, it's so close for the amount of people in each category. It's not even funny. It's a conversation that needs to be had.
Yeah, and if you also too, if you look at like, so when I think about the police and I think about calling the police, I'm calling the police when there's a violent crime committed against me or when I need help, right? And if you think about what police all really respond to, majority of what they respond to are non-violent crimes. Right, they respond to a dispute of some sort, but violent crimes isn't what they're responding to. And so we have all these police officers that we put on the street to help us solve violent crimes or to respond to violent crimes, and that's not what they're responding to, right? They're responding, they're pulling people over traffic tickets and doing all kinds of stuff. And you think about the number of people that have died as a result of being pulled over, non-violent crime, right? So if we defund the police, naturally the number of deaths will be reduced, because you're not going to have as many people responding to those nonviolent crimes and then find themselves in a situation where they have, be it inadvertently or intentionally, taken someone's life. I don't think that every time a person's life has been taken that it has been on purpose. Although I will say, conversely, I do believe people say that this, our police system, or I don't even call it our justice system, I call it a legal system, because I don't think that black and brown people are getting justice right now. But I do believe that system is not broken. I firmly believe that it is operating as intended. I have a number of friends that are in law enforcement, and they've said there are some people they believe that are white supremacists that join the police force such that they can further their cause. They don't raise their hand in their application and say, hey, I'm a white supremacist. They kind of fail to share that. But I do believe that it's functioning as intended, and we see that by the harsher prison sentences that we see black and brown communities get, right, and the number of people incarcerated. If you think about what's important, how do families thrive? Families thrive when they have a solid parent or 2 solid parents in the household, right? If you don't have that, then the household, the unit starts to break down. If you have over 1 million black men that are incarcerated, right? And same with brown men, right? You have that many men incarcerated, you naturally break down that family unit. And then if you have people that have less skills, they may be less educated, they have to work nights, weekends, and so they're not home with their kids, right? Their kids end up getting into mischief, and then it just the cycle just gets broken, and it just snowballs.
It's a cycle that hasn't ended, and I don't think will ever end.
Yeah.
And do you think that's what people refer to when they say that systematic racism still exists in America? Do you think that that's what they're referring to?
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many things that we went from slavery to Jim Crow, from Jim Crow to other forms of racism, like redlining, right? Like insurance companies saying, and banks saying, we're not going to.
No to loans, yeah.
Right. We're not going to provide loans, or we're going to make it difficult for people to move in these certain neighborhoods. And then you think about it, think about how many police officers have been cited for doing something wrong, and then they still keep their jobs. What tends to happen is they work a great neighborhood, they get in trouble a couple of times, they move to another police department, and as they continue to move, they keep getting placed into neighborhoods that people don't tend to care about. And then that's how we start to see the crime happen, and you see these cycles. So be it in education, in housing, in lending, you name it, there is, we can't police everybody. And so racism shows up in those different places. And we find ourselves where we are today. I would love to see reparations for African Americans. I don't know how we go about doing that. And you'll be surprised. Your mom knows this, Jackson, but we have 6 children between my husband and I, and we have 2 Trump fans in our house.
Really?
Yeah.
How?
That's what I said. I have no idea. One of them has 5 or 6 Make America Great Again hats in her bedroom right now. I could take you to see them. They're lined up. And I don't know how I can either be proud, we can either be proud of ourselves as parents to say that we raised our children to have their own thoughts and their own minds, or we can say we failed them. Like, we didn't do a good job.
Well, I think there's nothing wrong with being a conservative, and there's nothing wrong with being a liberal. But I personally think there is something. It's like a different category. Yes. There's something wrong with being a Trump supporter. Can you describe is it your daughter or your son?
It's a daughter and a son.
Can you describe your daughter and your son very briefly in like 2 sentences?
You know, I believe that they are privileged. So if you think about our kids have never wanted for anything. All of our kids had cars, like not even thought about how they were going to get a car. They all had cars. Some of them went to private schools. Some of them grew up in great neighborhoods, went to some of the best school districts. They've never struggled. You know what I mean? And so
I've never struggled.
Right. So they believe that those 2 believe that the Black Lives Matter movement, that Black people are acting like victims. I'm not joking. They said that you guys have victim mentality.
I hear and see that argument all the time.
Yeah. And so they find themselves supporting conservatives in the worst way, i.e., supporting Trump. I will say all that to say is I heard a really good TED Talk this morning. I'll send it to you. And this individual described how people tend to get sucked into a way of thinking, and he blames it on technology and social media. 100%. Social media has done a really good job of figuring us out. Like right now, Instagram and Facebook, when I was on it, they know exactly what ads to send me. They know I have grandchildren, and they know how to get me. I'm spending so much money on all these little trinkets and things. They do the same thing when they understand your political views. They start to things that show up on your wall and show up in your feed are things that you've shown an interest in. And so they start to suck you deeper into, because you start to think that the world thinks like you because that's all you see.
Yeah.
But it's because they figured you out and they're sucking you into one way or another. And so his suggestion was get off of social media, right? And start talking to people. Get out of your hand and get in your heart, right? And have compassion.
That's why I started a podcast. So
you're doing a great job. I've listened to your podcast. I subscribed, obviously.
Thank you. Everybody, see what you did? Do it. Subscribe.
And I believe that we can change the world and we can change each other once we start having conversations
100%.
with one another.
So the reason I asked to briefly describe your daughter and your son is I want you to beat this into their head that he does not care about you and he does not care about your son and your daughter.
They don't, and they don't understand that. They don't, but also to think of all of our kids, and I don't mean to put them down in any way because I love all of our kids the same. I think that those 2 lack the ability, they lack 2 things. They lack empathy and compassion, those 2 things. And then they also too lack the ability to critically think. And so those 2 in particular can hear a statistic and it's all they have a one-track mind when they hear that statistic. They aren't able to understand how we arrived at that statistic and how complex that statistic really is.
Well, yeah, if you went to a Trump rally and you believed everything that came out of his mouth and his mouth only, why wouldn't you be a Trump supporter?
Right.
But you have to, with anybody, not just Donald Trump, but Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Bernie Sanders, you have to think about what they said, and I sure hope they explain how they do it. That's why I wasn't really the biggest Bernie Sanders fan, because his ideas are amazing. But when asked how do you execute those ideas, I really feel like he never gave us like an answer. It was just more like rambling. That's why That's
Yeah,
why.
I think that was a fatal flaw on his part.
Yes.
Was his execution plan. Um, but I think that his ideas and his thoughts, because he's suggesting that we do this and it's something we have never done well before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's hard to come up with a plan that's concrete because it's never been done before, right? Like before Apple introduced the iPod, it never been done before, right?
Yeah.
So we came out with music, right? The MP3, and then it evolved into like we are now walking around with computers in our hand, but that took trial and error, right? They had to
Yeah.
figure that out. And I think that we owe it to ourselves to take some chances and figure things out, because people have taken chances, lives have been lost. You look at the coronavirus. I mean, the fact that the head of the free world will not wear a mask in public is ridiculous,
Crazy.
and people are dying, which leads me to this, because I do want to make sure that we
Go
talk
ahead.
about opening schools.
Oh, I'm looking at my list right now. That was the next thing we were talking about. As a teacher at a charter school, do you feel safe? And you're relatively young compared to other teachers, and I'm guessing relatively healthy. I don't know if you have an underlying condition or
I'm
not.
healthy. Yeah.
You're healthy. But then again, I'm healthy. Does that mean I should go back to school? I have a 60-year-old mother. I don't think I'm going back to school. Anytime.
Right.
What would you feel comfortable if, let's say, your governor mandated due to the president that you have to go back to school?
I don't think that there should be any mandates. And I want to break this down so people can understand it, because I had a lengthy conversation with the senior leaders of our charter school network today.
Mm-hmm.
So we have, and we're priding ourselves on this. We have committed to being an anti-racist organization, which means that we are going to look down a social justice and a racial lens on everything that we do to make sure that we're making the right decisions for the people we serve, which primarily are Black and brown communities.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing, just to set the context. So in Colorado, the Denver Public School District is saying we will return to school in person, and we're just going to delay it by a week, right? Well, but they also too surveyed families. And when they surveyed families, the Black and brown families, the majority of Black and brown families said, we don't want to return to school.
Mm-hmm.
We want to choose the online option, right? But then they still said, but we're going to return to school anyway. So I said, well, then why did you survey people?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why did you survey people if you're going to make the decision anyways? Let's not, right? And so my argument is this: if we are forced to go back to school, and even if we're forced to go back to school with two options, you can go online or you can go in person. If they give people the option of doing that, if Black and brown communities have family members or guardians or what have you that have underlying health conditions similar to what you described with your mom, right? Mm-hmm. Then, and they choose the online option, we all know that the online option is not as good as the in-person option, right? Yeah. And so if you're going to have a bunch of people that choose the in-person option that may not be people of color, and then you have the people of color that are choosing the online option, which is not as good, aren't you going to have an equity gap
100%.
in education? 100%. And so there shouldn't be,
like
everybody should, right, everybody should have the same option. Like, we should all be educated in the same way. But also too, let's not put our teachers at risk. Like, there have been teachers that have died as a result of getting this virus. So teachers, and then and students that have family members with underlying health conditions should not have to make a choice between life and death to be educated. And I think that's unfair.
I talked about this in my last episode. The administration is trying to push this agenda that we all need to go back to school, that the left's just lying to you, go back to school. But kids can't transmit it, apparently. I'm pretty sure I had it, so I could get it. But it's like they're completely forgetting about different factors. You have faculty, staff, custodians. You have the security officers in some cases. I know my school has security officers who are not the youngest in the world. What happens if they get it? Then they have blood on their hands. Why even make the risk? Is the risk even worth it?
Yeah. And when did our children become guinea pigs?
Exactly. I don't want to be.
So, like, the health of our children is less important than our economy.
I saw this one tweet on Twitter, and I thought it was very short. It was like, we don't really know what we're doing when it comes to going back to school. Yeah, and they were saying, like, it's like the worst idea possible to, like, use, as you said, the kids, children, as guinea pigs in this political, scientific experiment.
Yeah. And what about to your point? The other thing I said is, what about all the kids that have one parent or in one parent households?
Like me.
And if that parent has an underlying health condition and something happens to that parent, what happens to that child?
Exactly.
And no one's thinking about that. And so I hear uh, DeVos talking about, well, we want to get our kids back in school. I'm like, do you have kids? Are you sending your kids to school? And if the answer to that is no, then don't send everybody else's kids back to school.
Exactly. No, I completely get that. And
you can see I'm super passionate about that one.
I mean, you should be here. Next thing I want to dive into, and I know I have a lot to talk about it. I have literally a whole list in front of me on this topic, is taking down Confederate statues. I want to know, again, as an African American, let's say you live in the South, right? You're like walking through like downtown Atlanta, and you look up and you see like Robert E. Lee, for example. Go. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, if we're going to, statues are meant to honor people.
Honor. I literally have that.
Honor. Right? And so why are we honoring individuals, one, that lost a war, and then two, that did vile things? And people say, oh, we want to preserve history. That's left for museums and maybe books. But it should not be out for public display as if you're taunting the people, the very people that were subject to all of that, and I mean hundreds of years of torture. Like I even tell my kids, the ones that like Trump. Here's an example. Mm-hmm. The 27-year-old, he's very passionate, and we've gotten to heated arguments about Donald Trump. And I said, well, listen, I pay bills in this house. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to censor you. When you come in this house, we're not going to talk about Donald Trump. For me, it's equivalent to talking about abortion, and you know that I don't support abortion. Mm-hmm. And I know we're getting to way more political things here. But I said, you can't come into my house and talk about things that hurt my heart. Mm-hmm. You're not going to do that. Now at your house, your 27-year-old one-bedroom apartment, if you want to talk about Donald Trump all day and I come to your house,
go ahead.
It is what it is. And if you don't want me to talk about the other side, I won't. I will respect that. But for the general public, you can't put a statue out there that we can't vote on it. We can't talk about whether it's right or wrong. It's just there. Like, just deal with it. It's wrong. Mm-hmm. You have to take those down. We honor heroes, and it's not to say that we don't talk about the past or talk about history. I think we all need to understand history, or it's bound to repeat itself. But we should not be honoring these statues. Absolutely not.
So I made a few bullet points. So this morning, I got up early for this. This morning, I went on multiple news sites ranging from CNN, Fox News, New York Times, Huffington Post, Bloomberg, etc., finding arguments for each side of why we should keep statues and why we shouldn't. So let's talk about this shouldn't. A lot of Southerners believe that it's their heritage. Let's say I'm a Southerner. You're telling me that you want to take down my statue, my flag. Well, I say, well, that's my heritage. You can't do that. What's your argument to that?
My argument is, again, no one is saying that you can't remember. You have a memory. We have history books and we have museums, but we should not put those things on public display. They're harmful. They hurt people. They cause more harm than they do good. And if that is the case, take them down.
Okay, the next argument, hurtful, racist. Well, maybe you might find it racist, but I don't find it racist. Free country, why should we take it down? I don't find it racist. Maybe you're just sensitive.
Yeah, I think that if you don't find it racist or harmful, you might need to question your compassion. Like, literally dig into your deepest self and say, self, what is something that is sensitive to me that I don't believe should be out there for public display? And ask yourself, question yourself. So when you don't walk a mile in someone else's shoes, you have a lot to say. But when you walk a mile in someone else's shoes, you might change your perspective. And I think that the people that are on that side of the argument, they're lacking a lot of empathy. Not even a little, a lot.
A lot. Last argument, and this is kind of to your point, but it's used in like a different, let's say, agenda. Well, we keep them up. We keep these statues up to remind us of our dark past, so we don't repeat itself. But then again, you can make the argument, well, we don't make statues to remember history. If we did that, then there would be statues of Hitler all over Germany.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And so, but I do believe if people want to make statues or build statues to remember, we remember a lot of things. Like I've been to the Holocaust Museum in DC.
Mm-hmm.
I spent
I think I have.
right. I
I
spent
have.
6 hours in there.
Yeah.
But I don't want to see that when I go to downtown Denver. I'm like, I'm going there to be educated, to understand what happened such that it doesn't happen again. But I don't want to see that at the end of my block, or I don't want to see it in a park, because it was awful. It was horrible. And people don't need to relive that every single day. And you ask a Holocaust survivor if they want to walk past a picture of Hitler every single day. No.
Yeah, no. Next thing I want to get into, and we're going to kind of backtrack towards the Black Lives Matter movement. I know there's a lot of, not skepticism, but it's kind of, it was praised for like that 1 month. It was kind of became the social media trend to support Black Lives Matter. And now people are trying to, like, I know, like, Tucker Carlson, for example, is saying it's now the most powerful political party in the world. I feel like it's trying to be turned into, by the right, like kind of like a hate speech. Like Donald Trump said, he didn't want Black Lives Matter from Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue because it represented hate speech.
Yeah.
So, how do I word this? Black Lives Matter. When you hear the phrase Black Lives Matter, what is that? How does that make you feel? Like when I say Black Lives Matter, what do you think of other than Black Lives Matter? Like what's the core behind Black Lives Matter?
I think it's long overdue, and I'm proud of the individuals that started the movement. And here's what I would say to that. You hear people say, well, all lives matter.
Mm-hmm.
And I say they do. But all lives can't matter until Black lives matter, until brown lives matter, until yellow lives matter, right? Until transgender lives matter. Mm-hmm. All lives do matter, but you can't say all lives matter and exclude a cohort of the all lives. You can't do that. An example I can give you in that regard is when people say, right, let's stand up for cancer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But nobody says like what breast cancer. People are wearing their pink ribbon, right? Mm-hmm. But you don't hear people saying, well, prostate cancer matters. You know what I mean? It's like it's like cancer is awful. It is. It's just but we're trying to raise awareness to breast cancer because it's killing women. We're trying to raise awareness to Black lives because Black lives are being lost, right? And so it's long overdue, and it's not, the Black Lives Matter movement isn't saying that any other lives are less important. We're just calling attention to the social injustices that have been happening for quite some time. And I watched a video of a woman that really put things into perspective for me that I think is important for your listeners to hear. Mm-hmm. And it really changed the whole game for me on a lot of stuff. So you could probably consider me slightly above middle class in terms of what we earn, right? And so she had said, well, she goes, I'm talking to the high class or, higher social class, higher status Black individuals that have been questioning like why people are looting in the streets. Cause I was like, I don't agree with looting. Like, why are you out there tearing stuff up? Like you just protest, you go do your thing. Mm-hmm. And I just don't believe in or subscribe to violence. But here's what she said. She said, imagine playing a game of Monopoly, mm-hmm. right? And for 400 rounds, when you play, every single thing that you buy or that you earn, you have to give it to the person you're playing with. Mm-hmm. That's what happened in 400 years of slavery. And then for 50 rounds, right? For 50 rounds, you start to like get on your feet. You start to buy hotels. You're buying some bank, right? You're getting money, right? You're stacking cash. You're starting to get somewhere. And then they come and take all your 50 rounds worth of what you earned. Someone takes it. And that happened in Tulsa. That happened in Rosewood, right? Literally slaughtered Black people, burned their buildings, burned Tulsa to the ground, right? The Black Wall Street. That happened. So now we're at 450 years. And then when they decide to say, okay, well, maybe what we did was wrong after 450 years, maybe what we did was slightly wrong, right? Mm-hmm. So now we're going to have affirmative action. Well, now they're saying, well, you're only in this role because of affirmative action. You actually didn't earn it, right? It's not, you don't really, you shouldn't really have it, but we're giving it to you because we're trying to equal things out. Well, now that's psychological, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you see people out there, you saw people out looting, you saw people protesting, right? And so people are like, well, why are they burning down their own neighborhoods? You've probably heard that.
That's one argument that I would like. What do you get out of that?
What do you get out of that? Well, what she said is, we don't own anything. We don't own anything. So when you see them burning down a Target or burning down a McDonald's or what have you, it's not ours. We don't own it. And you have to ask, when we start focusing, she said, when you're focusing on the what, you're not focusing on the why. And so we're all focusing on the what, that's the looting, right? We're not focusing on the why. But if people feel so food insecure or so poor that they have to run through broken glass to get some of the things that we flaunt in front of them daily, mm-hmm. we have to question the why. Why are people that broke, that poor, that food insecure, that's their only chance of getting something? Because you saw people of all colors bringing out diapers.
It wasn't just Black
right.
people.
Toys.
It was everybody.
It was everybody, right? A lot of people. Not everybody, but a lot of people of different backgrounds, races, the whole nine. But why are people that insecure that they have to wait until that type of moment to go get those types of things for their family? People weren't being greedy. So you didn't see me, you weren't out there, right? You just said you're privileged. You weren't out there running through a Target and endangering yourself to get a mattress.
I don't feel like I'm not, right? Exactly. Yeah.
But we're not that insecure for food or things, but some people are. Like some people are that poor that they have to, and they're that poor and that they have to run through broken glass to get something for their family. I saw people running out with diapers. Mm-hmm. That's sad. Cribs. That's sad. Now, right? So when you put all those things together, now I'm like, I don't agree with looting ever. Mm-hmm. But I understand now, right? Now I have an understanding of like, wow, that Target is sitting there open for the taking. I'm not saying you go do it because I'm not a thief. But I'm not that poor either, right? Like I don't know what it feels like to go days without a meal.
Yeah.
So if I don't understand that, then I can't make a comment and I can't judge people for doing something that might be their only chance or their only shot at getting something. Have you ever seen the movie The Platform?
I don't think I have, no.
Take a look at that. Have a whole podcast on The Platform. The platform is about social classes. I'd love to be a guest on your show for that one too.
You know what? I can arrange that. One more topic, then we're gonna wrap up because I'm quite tired.
I've given you a lot. I'm like,
no, it's
passionate about all this.
I haven't slept. Face masks. I want to know your thoughts on it. It's sad that I even have to ask you your thoughts on it. What do you think about it? What do you think about your president not wearing it? What do you think about people saying it violates their rights, etc.? Go.
If you care about your fellow neighbor, if you care about the person living next door to you, put on a damn mask. Mm-hmm. And, you hear these people with these arguments saying, well, it's hard to wear a mask.
It's hard to be in a pandemic. What?
It's a pandemic. Talk to surgeons who have to wear a mask during heart surgery for hours.
It's not even just a mask. It's a mask, face shield, another mask, and scrubs.
Right. Talk to our soldiers that have to wear masks when they're in areas that have been tear gassed. Right. Or right. This isn't hard. If you have love in your heart and you care about other people, mm-hmm. forget what you think about yourself. If you don't care about your own life, that's one thing. But care about someone else's life. I wear a mask every single time I leave the house.
Me too.
I encourage other people to wear masks. And I can't tell you, I'd be lying if I didn't say when I see people without the mask, I do give them the stink eye because I'm like, you're not, that's for me, not wearing a mask is very un-American.
I was about to say, I always find that the most like American pride, I love America, you got the MAGA flag hanging off my four-wheeler truck. Like, if you're so, just put on an American flag mask. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
I asked Trump, who's so capitalist, who loves money, his whole brand is based off how much money he has. You could benefit so much off making like MAGA masks. Like, push your campaign even more with something that's quote unquote trendy, masks. Yeah. And even he's trying to like make it like political. And then while he's making it political, he'll like point at the left or deflect to the left, saying no, but they're making it political. Like, I always mispronounce her name. It's the news anchor on Fox News, white, blonde, something Ingram, Laura.
Laura I know what you're talking about.
Yep. She had this one headline, and it was like, the left don't want you going back to school. Here's why. Like, why are these like simple like humane topics becoming like a left and right issue?
That's, to me, this shouldn't be about politics. This should be about humanity. And I, if you care about your fellow neighbor, put a mask on. And if you don't care about your neighbor and you care more about the economy, put a damn mask on, because it's all connected. Like put a mask on. I don't get that at all. I mean, I have masks in every car. I have hand sanitizer everywhere. And I even have masks for people that don't have masks. Because when people say, I don't have a mask, I'm like, here's one. Because I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want my mom to die. I don't want anybody that I love to die to this virus while we're in search of a vaccine or some sort of cure. And I know that I can't inject myself with UV light or bleach or disinfectant. And so if I can't do that, the least I can do is wear a mask. Now, the crazy thing is, Jackson, is that there were people that would rather, and they actually did, like ingest Lysol or disinfectant or bleach and had to be hospitalized. There are cases out there. These are the same people that refuse to wear a mask. You drank bleach, but you won't put a mask on? That's insane. That's insane.
It kind of shows the power that the president of the United States has.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of scary that the dude I watched on every Thursday night on NBC, Celebrity Apprentice, has the power of the free world, and now he's using that power to, I would say, kill us.
So that's all about leadership. And what I would say to you is, and I'm going to try to see if you can see this. So here, a friend of mine has a lead in love. So I would say, if you're going to do anything, if you're going to follow anything, follow love. Love is kind. Love does not hold any judges or does not hold any judgment. It doesn't keep account of right and wrong. Lead in love and follow. If you're going to follow something, follow in love, follow with empathy and compassion. Be American by doing that. That's the best thing we can all do for each other.
And one more thing, and we're going to wrap up. And I think that's what the problem with our leader is. I don't think he has an ounce of love in that 300-pound body of his.
No, he has no morals. And I actually believe in my heart that he believes that the pandemic happened on his dime. Like, he doesn't believe that it's happened to the rest of us. He believes it happened to him. And that's the saddest thing. When I hear him saying that the people in Charlottesville were fine. And you know what, this is what broke my heart too. And I shared this with my boss the week after the George Floyd incident. And I broke into tears, and it was an ugly cry. It was awful. But I said, one of my sons called me, and he said, Mom, I don't understand. He goes, if I kneel with Kaepernick, the president calls us sons of bitches. He said, but if we protest, right? He said, we're thugs. He's like, how can we win? And I said, I don't know. And that broke my heart. He's like, if we protest with civility and right and with respect, by just taking a knee, that that is you're you're a son of a bitch. But then if you do something else, you're a thug, and it just I think it's sad, but I think he's pleading to his base.
Mm-hmm.
I think he knows exactly what he's doing, and I think he doesn't care, because if he doesn't lose, then he hasn't sold himself out, right? He's going to say, I already stood my ground. And for me, this is so surreal. I keep wanting to say that I'm gonna wake up from a coma and I'm gonna be like, oh my god, like we were in the middle of a pandemic, like we couldn't go places, we were all walking around wearing masks, but it's actually not a dream, right? It's like it's real, it's insane. But this is what you get when you vote someone into office that doesn't have any morals, and that has an ego bigger than a heart.
So one more thing. So let's say in a place like Jamaica, are they as strict with the rules as they are here? Is it as bad in Jamaica as it is here? Like, what's it like? Is Jamaica kind of like close to like a relevancy of normal more than
What
here?
I understand from the locals in Jamaica, that they have a government that's is more corrupt than ours. However, they are rule followers. I had my temperature checked more in Jamaica than I have had in my lifetime, seriously, in America. And I felt safer in Jamaica than I do in America. People were wearing their masks when they were in common spaces.
Mm-hmm.
But it was what I needed in the middle of a pandemic. And quite frankly, if I can get another week on my hands, I'd go right back to Jamaica to recover, because I felt safe there.
Yeah. All right. Well, Tameeka, thank you so much for coming on. I was so excited for this episode. I think it went very smoothly in just in the time frame that I needed to be on. Thank you so much. Do you have anything else to say before we wrap up?
Just thank you for doing this. I applaud you. I think you're woke in a number of ways, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate you having differences of opinions on your podcast, because I think that that's healthy for all of us. I learn something every day, and in fact, I'm learning by listening to your podcast. So keep doing that. You're doing the country, your community, a huge service by keeping the conversation going.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone that listened this far. Stay safe, stay healthy, wear a mask. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
So.